Good evening to each and every one of you. Just want to let you know the first question will be a 3-minute response. The subsequent 5 questions will be 2-minute response, and then we'll have a final closing question that will be 3 minutes in response. If you do call out one of the other candidates during one of your responses, that candidate that has been called out will have a 30-second opportunity to rebut anything that's been said. So with that being said, let's get started with our first question. And we will start with candidate Ritter. Why should we care that you want to be the next lieutenant governor? Which of the several duties and roles of the lieutenant governor is the most important in your view? And what makes you a superior candidate in that particular duty or role? Candidate Bengel, same question, 3 minutes.
Well, thank you all very much for being here. And I want to talk to you a little bit today about my story. And my story started on September 14th, 2018, when Hurricane Florence dumped 8 trillion gallons of water on eastern North Carolina in my hometown of Newbern. I saw streets flooded. I saw people flooded out of their homes. People lost everything. Friends, family, people lost everything. I saw chaos in our streets. I saw people that didn't know what to do. And they needed a leader. They needed someone that would stand up and take the reins amidst all the craziness. And that was when I knew I needed to stand up and act. I needed to lead. And the Republican Party needed a leader. And we got one in Donald Trump. Donald Trump was a business owner that had never been in politics before. Our lieutenant governor was a business owner that had never been in politics before. We need good, strong business leaders that understand how to build companies, understand how to build things, and sometimes take them that when they're falling apart and know how to put the pieces back together. As lieutenant governor, you have a mouthpiece. You can talk about things. You have a pulpit to go in front of crowds, just like this, and talk about how you can make a difference, how you can help create opportunity. And when I look at opportunity, I think about opportunity not just in the business world, not just how we can create jobs and how we can talk to a CEO one-on-one about why we need to bring companies to North Carolina to help expand higher-paying jobs here, but we can talk about opportunity in education. We can talk about things like the Opportunity Scholarship. We can talk about things that will help families across North Carolina make a better living for their kids than they've had themselves. We need to find ways that we can continue to go across North Carolina, someone that will roll their sleeves up and know that when times of crisis come, that you will have a leader that will stand up. It's time for my generation, the next generation, to stand up. I'm thankful for the people who've helped build the bridge in North Carolina, who've helped get us to where we're at. But now that work has been done, and we need a leader that will continue to carry it on. That can go down the education spectrum, that can talk about the business spectrum, and has a wide background. And as you'll hear tonight, I have a very diverse background, from sports and entertainment to restaurants, from nonprofit work in hospitals all the way up to economic development boards. North Carolina needs that leader that is ready to stand up and act, and I will be that leader.
Thank you.
For our next question, we'll start with Mr. Robinson. We'll work it through so everybody will have a chance to go first, and everyone, as a result, will also have a chance to be last. So, as Lieutenant Governor, it's a separate, independent, elected office in North Carolina, one of 10 statewide executive branch offices. As the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, it's not widely understood, but you have to create something of an identity for yourself as Lieutenant Governor. These responses in 2 minutes list your top 3 priorities as Lieutenant Governor and what you will do specifically to get those accomplished in the office.
Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of our liberal governor. That's the first thing we got to do. And we're going to put a Republican in the governor's mansion. And then we're going to work with the governor. And we're going to work with the governor first on education. And I talked about it earlier. We're going to talk about opportunity scholarships. We need to expand that. Opportunity scholarships offer an opportunity for lower-income families to send their child to private schools, to send them to charter schools. I believe in school choice. I trust parents. I want to make sure that our parents have the opportunity to do what's best for their children. And I will advocate every single day for those parents. We currently have a governor that does not trust parents, and he said it by his vetoes. He obviously doesn't trust women, because if he did, he would have never vetoed the Born Alive bill. The second thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about bringing jobs to North Carolina and looking at some of our rural areas. We're going to talk about land in North Carolina. North Carolina has tons of unused land. We need to sell that back and get it back on the tax rolls so we can start creating jobs. We can start putting that money back into our economies and back into our state. And we're going to make North Carolina the most military-friendly state in the country. And we're going to work every single day to talk about that. Our military and our veterans, first off, I want to say thank you to all the military and veterans in here. Thank you. God bless you for what you do for our country. And as the Lieutenant Governor, I will tell you, you will have a friend in the office of the Lieutenant Governor, and every single day we will advocate to make the lives better, not just for our service members, but for our veterans right here in North Carolina.
Next question is a 2-minute question. We have all come to understand that one of the key roles, positions for the Lieutenant Governor of the great state of North Carolina is to be a member of the state school board. Let's talk specifically about some of the policies and the priorities that you would want to enact as a member of the state school board, but also let's talk about how do you see that relationship with the state superintendent of schools. And candidate Bengel, same question, 2 minutes.
Well, I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. I trust parents. I'll say it again. I trust parents. I believe in school choice, and I will advocate every single day to make sure that we can expand on school choice. So that parent that has that child that may be a special needs child, or maybe coming from a small rural county where they can't afford to send their child to some school, that they will have an opportunity for that child to have an education. I'll work every day to talk about how we can expand the Opportunity Scholarship, to get it from $4,200 up to about $6,200, or even work as a percentage of what we spend on our kids right now in public schools, because I believe that's important. I think that's an issue we need to talk about every single day, and as a Lieutenant Governor, I will. Another issue that's extremely important is talking about making sure that our children are safe. Unfortunately, we've seen too many atrocities in this country, and I'll work every day to make sure we have SROs in every single school, starting with our preschools all the way up to our high schools, to make sure that when that mother drops her 5 or 6-year-old kid off at kindergarten, she never has to worry that something's going to happen to that child. She knows that there's somebody in that school armed and ready that if somebody walks in to take that perpetrator down. And I will make sure every single day we advocate for that. And sitting on the school board, I will make sure to work with our school superintendent, which will be a Republican. We're going to elect Republicans across the board, and we will make changes in education to make North Carolina the leader in education.
Our next question, also 2 minutes. We'll start with candidate Bengel. Economic development is an important issue for the state of North Carolina. We're increasingly in competition in a global economy. We've been cited by many publications over the last several years as a desired destination for businesses. As Lieutenant Governor, for all of the candidates here, what will be your priorities in terms of keeping North Carolina competitive in this global economy that we'll face in the coming decades?
Well, to answer your question, it takes a business leader to understand how to recruit and retain a company. I've been very fortunate throughout my career to start different types of companies, from owning a baseball franchise to a sports consulting firm to different restaurants. And understanding the metrics of what it takes, how to create a budget, how to create jobs. And not just how to create jobs when you have 60 people a day coming to Raleigh, but how to create a job at a small rural town like New Bern, North Carolina. Understanding when 60 people a day aren't moving there. And you have to understand how to, we need to expand companies. We need to bring things to us. So it takes a business leader that understands, that understands the business background. And as Lieutenant Governor, I want to help create those opportunities here in North Carolina. I want to be able to create, our legislator has done a great job of making the restrictions on businesses go away. We've gone from one of the average states to doing businesses to most recently the #1 state by Forbes to do business. But one of the things we lack is access to capital. We have to find ways to help fund some of these projects. I think back to that young Marine coming out of Marine Corps Cherry Point who has an expertise in working on HVAC units. And he wants to start a company when he gets done with his service. And he has to think, well, do I stay in North Carolina or do I go back home to Virginia or Florida, whatever state? I want to work with our state to find ways that we can help create capital to keep that young Marine and his family right here in North Carolina. We have to find new ways to create jobs, not just in our urban economies, but in our rural as well. And it takes a business leader to do that. You've seen it with the White House with President Trump. You've seen it with our current Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forrest. And I will do the exact same thing as the next Lieutenant Governor.
In the audience tonight, is my former brigade commander, Colonel Denny R. Lewis, and also my former brigade executive officer, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Powers. We all came in together. I was the brigade operations officer, brand new. One of the important things about the cycle of a unit or an organization is a smooth continuum of leadership. So my question to you is, give us an idea about your philosophy of leadership, and then also, what are the current policy positions of the Lieutenant Governor Forrest that you will seek to improve and sustain?
You know, when I think about my philosophy on leadership, leadership is not something that you do to somebody. And I think back to September 14th, and some friends, storm waters were starting to rise. It was the first day of the storm. I remember going through a very low-lying, low-income area. My truck, water was about halfway up the door, pulling up to this lady's house and knocking on her door. And it was the saddest thing in the world I've seen. Water's coming in her front porch, and she didn't want to leave. She had her cats, she had her clothes. She didn't want to get out of her house. And we kept saying, ma'am, if you don't leave now, you're going to be underwater in a few hours. It was not something that we were asked to do or we were told to do, but we felt it was right to go help somebody that couldn't help themselves. That's leadership. Being able to roll your sleeves up and take action, to see something before it's happening, to throw yourself in the middle of a situation. I think that's what our men and women of armed services, Lieutenant Colonel, you did that every day of your career. You put yourself in harm's way. You took action. And as Lieutenant Governor, I will roll my sleeves up every single day and take action. And we talk about our current Lieutenant Governor. One of the things I admire about him is his hustle. The man works more than anybody that I've seen. He's going all across the state, and he did it not just on his campaign, but he did it as Lieutenant Governor. When we talk about some issues that he has, I talked about the Opportunity Scholarship and championing issues like that to make sure that our kids' future is better than ours. You know, my generation is the first generation that's going to make less than my parents. We need to make sure that our kids' generation does not follow that. And I want to make sure, finally, that we have a business owner in the Lieutenant Governor's office that understands how to run a business and will run that with good conservative values.
All right, this is the second to last question, but before we get to that, I want to take a moment of personal privilege and say what an honor it's been to share the stage with you, Lieutenant Colonel, a true patriot and leader. Thank you, sir. One of the duties that the Lieutenant Governor currently holds, Dan Forrest, is the chair of the Energy Policy Council. And so as Lieutenant Governor, what will be your priorities in terms of leading North Carolina, in terms of the necessary energy generation that we'll need for the economy of the 21st century, for manufacturing, for our homes, for our families? What will be the necessary policies to make sure North Carolina has energy for its future?
We've heard some of the candidates talk a little bit about the pipeline, and I'll say this. If Governor McCrory did what Governor Cooper did, they'd have thrown him in jail. And I hope the legislature goes after Governor Cooper the way that they should for what he's done to the state of North Carolina. The second thing I think about growing up in a rural community, one of the things that's really important to us in New Bern is the fact that we own our own electric utility. It's a major advantage to us. It's an advantage that when a natural disaster comes, we get electricity a little bit faster. We don't have to wait on Duke Energy. I think about some places down in Carteret County at the coast. It takes them a little bit longer because they're sending trucks from other parts of the state all the way down east. I look at that as an advantage. As Lieutenant Governor, one of the things that we can work on is talking with municipalities about what they've done, about how they generate their power, and how they make sure that their constituents have electricity. I also think about another place that I like to call home, and that's the beautiful Crystal Coast. And we look up and down our eastern seaboard, and we talk about the waterways. And one of the things we've talked a little bit about is looking at offshore drilling. And to me, one of the things when I think about offshore drilling is we need to look at exploring. I'm not saying we need to go and start drilling, but we need to know what's out there. We need to know to make sure that someone from the state of Virginia or South Carolina isn't coming into our waters and taking what's ours. We need to make sure that we know what's in our waterways, and if we can find ways to produce oil, I don't know what's under there. But if we can find ways to produce things at a cheaper, more efficient rate without having to use taxpayer dollars, I will firmly advocate for those issues. Thank you.
This is the final question. It will serve as your summation, and it will be 3 minutes allocated to each and every one of you. On January of next year, 2021, you will find yourself as the lieutenant governor, and Dan Forrest is the governor. However, not soon after he takes the oath of office, the governor will have to leave office. Explain to the people here why you will be ready to step in to be the governor of the great state of North Carolina.
If I'm asked to step in the role of governor, the first thing that you have to do is you have to have a vision. And one of the things that I get to do in my professional life is I get to build teams. I get to build a baseball team, which is actually kind of fun, to be honest with you. And when I think about building my baseball team, I think about culture, and I think about that vision. And both of those things are all about winning. And as the governor, I would build a team around winning. Seems like we have somebody else doing a lot of winning right now. And we'd be doing that right here in North Carolina. It would be a pro-job, pro-business approach. One of the things that we haven't talked a lot about tonight is the #1 industry in North Carolina, agriculture. And as the governor, I would stand up for guys like Representative Lewis and farmers just like you to say, I've got your back. And I'm going to stand up and make sure your farms can succeed and restaurants like mine have food in them and my chefs can prepare those. And without guys like you, we can't do that. And I'll stand up every single day for you guys. I'll stand up to make sure North Carolina is the most military-friendly state in the country. And we will have a team that's led with personal responsibility and personal accountability. And we will work together every single day, rolling our sleeves up to make sure that North Carolina is a better state than when we got here. And if we're blessed to continue to have 2 terms, on day 1, if that happens on that first day, our first call will be to the White House. Say, Mr. President, I'm right there with you, and we're going to keep America great. Congratulations on your 2nd term. I thank you all for the opportunity to stand here. I'm humbled to have the opportunity to meet so many great people, hear so many great stories throughout the state of North Carolina, and I humbly ask for your vote and your support on March 3rd. Please feel free, if you have any other questions, we'll be happy to answer them after, or visit our webpage at buddyfornc.com or follow us on Facebook. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come listen tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for having me here back in the great state of North Carolina to participate in this Lieutenant Governor Forum. Let me leave you with a couple of thoughts before we close this out. It was Plato who once said, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you shall be governed by your inferiors. This is the reason why we are sitting here right now, why some 3,000 paratroopers were on Green Ramp and boarding airplanes, so that we can have this democracy, that we can have this freedom, that we can have this liberty. You have to participate in it. You have to be all in. You have to understand that your responsibilities as a citizen in the greatest nation that the world has ever known, the constitutional republic that we call home, these great United States of America, and then this great state of North Carolina. God bless you all. God bless North Carolina. And go out and make a difference for this state and for this country. Thank you so much.